Welcome to Let's Talk. And I am your host, Shelley Rugg.
I'm Stephen Hurwitz.
And I'm Maya Rose.
Maya's our guest. Paul Raffel is out of the country.
Thank you for having me, Shelley.
But not out of his mind.
You're welcome. And let's see. Oh, what are we talking about today, Stephen?
I think we're talking about vaping.
Vaping?
Yeah, vaping. What is it?
Yeah, so I brought this idea to the table because I was interested in the whole vaping controversy going on right now. It's something that's kind of penetrated my sphere just with having friends who have been addicted to nicotine and being kind of a younger person and just seeing it a lot. So I wanted to talk about it, what we think about prohibition, what we think about the chemicals in vapes, just anything that we've heard.
Yeah. And if you want to get in on this conversation today, the numbers to call are 415-663-8492 or 8317. We'd love to hear what you know, what your experiences are around vaping.
You know, I did a little research on it, and I was really surprised. This is a $3 billion market right now. That's a lot of vaping going on.
Yeah.
It's and the cigarette companies obviously have figured out a new way to deliver nicotine. So,
yeah, I was actually just reading last night that the head of Juul, one of the main companies that distributes these vapes, I don't know if you've seen them. They're like about the size of a USB drive, and they make it really easy for people to kind of hide that they're vaping.
Right.
And I was reading that the CEO or the head just stepped down and made way for somebody from a big tobacco company to come in and head Juul.
right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Not in a good way.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in the kitchen.
It's kind of questionable what they're trying to do here because I think one of the main goals of Juul was to be able to wean people off of cigarettes so they can still vape nicotine, but it's supposedly not as bad as cigarettes. But then to have a big tobacco company person head the Juul company in charge of vapes was kind of weird. And
I think is it Philip Morris owns 30% of Juul, and from what I read, this guy that they put in, his expertise is in handling controversy. So now that it's getting hot, they said, okay, we better get somebody in there who knows what he's doing.
Makes sense.
And yeah, it's a hot topic right now.
Well, I'll just share the first time I experienced vaping myself. It's kind of funny. My boyfriend and his son actually, when there used to be a Blackbird Cafe, they were outside, by the bay and, imbibing on the cannabis. And they walked into the Blackbird, and I guess they had a smell, and somebody says, "You shouldn't smoke that stuff." And they looked at him, and he says, "You should vaporize." And so my experience with vaping was with a vaporizer, which is actually a rather large device. I'm holding my hands here. Those on the radio can't see.
It looks pretty big.
Let's see, what would it be the size of? Half a lunchbox, I don't know.
Some of them are very heavy.
Yeah, and heavy, made of wood, and the idea is that you take the raw material, so it could be cannabis, it could be tobacco. It's natural, grew from the earth, and you put it in this receptacle, and you turn the vaporizer on. It heats up, and then you inhale the vapor. And it's very mild, and you're not hurting your lungs as bad as smoking the product and inhaling the paper that's burning and all of that. So that seemed like it made sense. But with the new vape cartridges that they make, it's like you don't know what they're putting in those.
And I will specify that this conversation started about electronic vapes, like the smaller kind. But yeah, Shelley, the kind that you're talking about, some of us may have had experience with them with like Volcanoes. Volcano is a vaporizer. It comes in so many different forms. But
what's a Volcano? It's the first time I've heard that.
Oh, volcanoes are really fun. So let me see, with my limited knowledge of science and mechanics, it's like the most expensive vaporizer you can get. I've seen it used for cannabis.
Snoop Dogg, is he marketing?
He probably has it. I hope he does.
I think he does, yeah.
Snoop Dogg. Yeah, and it fills up with the vapor and makes this big balloon full of vapor, and then there's a tube that you suck, and it's kind of like a stationary thing. You put it in a circle of friends, you pass the tube around, and you all... And it is a lot easier to smoke than actual smoke. Like, it doesn't give you that harsh feeling in your throat. You kind of, a lot of times, don't really realize how high you're getting, so that's interesting, too.
Sounds like a high-tech bong, actually.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
so the idea is it's better for you to use than a bong and to smoke than any other smoking products. And I think in a lot of ways it is, but there aren't regulations on what's put into the vapes, into the Juuls, into the electronic ones now. So that's how they can be a little bit scarier. And
right,
you know,
and I've heard there's also like, what do you call it? Like knockoffs, you know, they're not legit. They're
street.
They're pretending to be another company. There's a term for this, and I just can't pull it up.
Is it white labeling? Black
label?
Something.
But anyway, so, you know, you have to be careful where you buy what you're using, and even research the makers.
Yeah, from what I was reading, these 560 or whatever it is, lung problems, they're not sure whether they're coming from street purchases. You know, talk about unsure what's in there. You buy something in the street. You can get methamphetamines in there. You can get heroin in these things.
What, in a vape?
In a vape. Yeah, off the
that's
street.
Scary.
Imagine sucking on a vape and all of a sudden it's meth.
Oh no!
I don't.
That's really scary.
Sure?
Well, this is just what I read. I have no personal experience with it.
Well, I don't know. I heard one report that the suspicion was that that somebody had used vitamin E oil to dilute the product, and not knowing that when that vaporized vitamin E oil hits your lungs, once it settles in there, it's very, very sticky.
Yeah, not a good thing to vape.
Yeah, and
so that's a product not made by Juul.
I don't know who makes it.
I see.
I think it was unclear if it was like a bunch of different companies, like it wasn't just one, but I think the bottom line is because these companies are just trying to make money off of people, ultimately they're just diluting their products so they can make more.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, even though we have, you know, legitimate stores we can go in now and buy these things that are
smoke shop,
way overly packaged, by the way.
And marketed.
You know, I mean, it used to be when they first opened some of the at least the cannabis shops, they would have it in jars and they would weigh it out and put it in a little bag for you. But now the regulations are that it has to be completely packaged.
Yeah, I have noticed that too. Bags on bags
so
on bags.
So that's a clue if you are in a store that doesn't have everything in packages, that they're probably illegal.
Yeah.
But the e-cigarettes. So I personally know more about the cannabis use that I'm not a smoker of cigarettes. So what more do you know about that?
Personally, I mean, from what I've been reading, is they're heavily used by high school students, and they're marketed with flavors and some of the wild names for the flavors. But
like candies.
Yeah, candy flavors. And, you know, Hawaiian pineapple, whatever.
Have you ever been in one of those stores?
No, I haven't.
It's like a candy store. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's like an adult candy store. There's very interesting culture going on there.
Right.
I don't think they let in younger people, though. I think it's probably, 21 and over to get in.
I have no real. I've been in cannabis. What would you call it? They're not stores, are they?
Dispensary. That's what they call it.
Dispensaries. Yeah. I've been in there. I haven't made any purchases because just way too expensive. I mean, how they can charge $40 for a bud of marijuana?
Well, and the tax.
Yeah,
that
the
they
tax is a
load
killer.
on top of it is amazing.
You know, I spent my years and years, 20 years, advocating for legalizing marijuana, and now I just realize it was just a big gift to the to big tobacco companies. They've gone into the production of marijuana really big in Canada, for example, which is a whole country that's legalized, but they're taking over the industry. So it's just been a big gift to tobacco.
I still think it's really important to legalize and to decriminalize cannabis,
Decriminalize, yes.
because there are a lot of people in jail for selling or smoking.
They should be let out.
Something that nature provides.
Yeah.
You know, it's
definitely easier to just grow your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for years, people have been expressing that it does have a lot of medicinal purposes, and it does.
That is true.
Right.
Cannabis does.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us can speak to that. Anybody who's had chronic back pain, seizures, autism, migraines. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Right.
Boredom.
Cancer, depression, anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be simmered down into an oil, and then you can add that oil to like coconut oil, dilute it, and now you have a really nice rub.
Yes.
Which, you know, you can buy it in the pharmacies now and in the market. So that's interesting.
You know, one of the there's statistics that say 1 in 4 high school students has vaped, and I was reading an article about that, and a high school girl, when told that statistic, she laughed out loud. And she said, "Everybody has."
Oh, well, I'm curious. Also, would all those high school students, if we didn't have vapes, would they all have tried cigarettes then? Would they all have tried it sometime? Because I'm sure we all have.
Personally, I think alcohol was the drug of choice, not cigarettes. I mean,
well, you're listening to KWMR. 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, 92.3 San Geronimo Valley, and this is Let's Talk.
What number can they call us at?
And the numbers to call are 415-663-8492 or 8317. We'd love to hear your knowledge about the vaping controversy and if it's affected your life at all. Right now, I know they're really trying to push for people to just not buy the products until they can figure out what exactly is going on.
I kind of think that they're just trying to, they proposed a ban, like I think in California and in New York. And one of their ideas also was to ban all of the flavored vaping products and just keep the tobacco flavors. Actually, I guess so that it's easier for people to get off of cigarettes onto vapes. But it feels like they're just trying to put a Band-Aid over the whole situation, and like this isn't the real problem. The problem is the tobacco industry, and the tobacco industry is trying to say, no, the problem is vapes. We need to get rid of the vapes. So
I just see it as another way for the tobacco industry to create a new generation of people who are addicted to nicotine, which is a very difficult drug to kick. It's very difficult. If anybody's known somebody who was a smoker,
but I know
they've had a hard time.
The vaping has really been pushed as a healthier alternative to smoking.
And I think it is, but without all of the additives, without whatever they put, like if we could regulate what they were putting in vapes. And a lot of places do, like for medical cannabis vapes, I think a lot of that is regulated fairly, but like the street carts that people are getting are definitely not, and I think that it also maybe costs a lot to get their stuff tested. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if it's just for the cannabis industry or if it's for the whole vape industry, but if it costs so much to get this thing tested that we're going to be smoking and putting in our bodies, then of course they're not going to get it tested. And they're just going to lie and say they did.
Or there's, they'll buy it on the street. It's a real interesting situation.
Where do you go to buy stuff on the street, Stephen?
Front of the bakery, from bicyclists.
What street?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm not a vapor. And I'm a fogey, so I go.
I'm just teasing you. That's okay.
Hey, I can't handle it, so I don't want any teasing.
Okay, no more teasing, I promise.
No, I don't know. Personally, I think the big issue is what you do about it. Prohibition does not work. We know that, and age requirements certainly work sometimes, but I don't think it's that hard for somebody who is underage to get alcohol. And so so you got an age requirement. You've got look, we make it easier to get firearms for an underage person than to get vaping products. So if the whole thing's crazy. We have 30,000 firearm deaths a year and 500 sicknesses from vaping, and all of a sudden it's a national emergency.
Yeah. Priorities. But yeah, like you were sort of suggesting that, we have to always look at not just this reactive shift, but why the reactive shift? Is there some other meaning to it besides they actually care for our health?
I think it's low-hanging fruit. I think that it's pretty easy for politicians to say, "Oh, we've got to do something about it." It's the kids, it's the flavors, and face it, if people are doing THC, it's the cannabis connection. I just think that if the president comes out strongly against it, then we definitely have something that's easy.
Oh dear! But there's also that additive they put in a lot of the vaping devices, or the what do they call it? The juice that causes these big, huge plumes of smoke. And I don't know the name of the additive, but it's a very specific thing they put in there that's just for that alone, and not a lot is known about that particular ingredient.
Yeah, this kind of brings into question, why was this not more studied, more regulated from the beginning? Why are we just starting to care and to hear about it now?
I think that's partly the fault of how business tends to operate, where they charge forward with their idea and they'll say, sorry about that later.
Yeah.
Plus, the tobacco lobby is gigantic. This is a $800 billion worldwide industry. So,
they're unstoppable.
They support a lot of things that benefit Congress.
I guess, as far as being unstoppable, the one power we have to try to stop things is to not participate in
and
them.
To educate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think high schoolers are really hard to educate, aren't they?
I don't know, these new ones.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of distrust for us old fogies, They don't trust that we care about the environment, that's for sure. They don't trust that we care about the gun laws. They don't trust that we care. So if we tell them...
That's pretty subjective. I'm not sure I agree with that.
This is dangerous, they might... It's tradition that kids don't like to listen to the adults.
I think we just have to meet them on their level and not try to, I don't know, whatever it is we usually do that doesn't get through to them. I think we can make more leeway around how we treat younger people and how we communicate with them.
Yeah. It's really also about development. We all are continually evolving throughout our lives. And when we're younger, our brain is still developing, and we're really more willing to take risks that maybe later we might second guess. Mm-hmm. So that's at play as well. It doesn't matter how smart someone is or what great advice they have. Humans like to take risks. I don't know.
Totally.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm totally on board with the fact that this younger generation is so aren't willing to listen to older people that have come before them. I'm not sure about that, and because look. Climate activism didn't just start with Greta. It was happening long before that.
Right.
She's become a catalyst, and which is fantastic. I love the girl and what she's doing. That's a whole nother subject if we want to get on that. But kids going in the street for climate. Yeah, it's great to see the activism and kids waking up about mass murder killings in high schools. It's just phenomenal what's going on with the reaction and training of kids what to do. This is back in the early days when they were training kids about nuclear bombs, about duck and cover as if climbing under your chair.
Now we have active shooter drills.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
I agree with you. I think the younger generation is very smart, and honestly, I hope they invent a better way to vape and a safer way, and I hope they take the regulations into their own hands if that's something that they want. If they want to continue to vape without fear of, popcorn lung, whatever it is, then maybe they'll take that into their own hands.
Yeah, it's, we are pretty aware that we can't really trust big corporations.
They're the ones that the kids need to be rebelling against,
right?
Not the older generations trying to save their health.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes back to the very same issues with smoking. This is the tobacco company. I think they found a new way to apply nicotine, which is what cigarettes are not about smoking. They're about
looking cool.
Well, they're about a way to get nicotine. I'm talking about from the tobaccos. These guys are drug dealers. Nicotine is a strong drug. I certainly smoked for many years. I know a lot of people of my age who smoked, and so, the tobacco use has been on a steady decline, and so they've got a new generation to work on. I think it's just another marketing, and a successful one, frankly.
Yeah.
Do you think that possibly there could be some motive behind big tobacco companies trying to get these vapes out there and putting things in vapes, or just not regulating, and sickness like cancer, lung disease, like they want to sell us the medicines and the treatments, so it's maybe in their favor to get us sick?
I know.
Is that too much?
Yeah.
I think that could be the case with probably a lot of things.
With our food, at least.
Yeah.
I think it's more when you talk about ill health, for example, take cancer. That was a big issue with tobacco. I think that if it stands between, they know what it is, but if it stands between the bottom line and people's health, then they're going to ignore the health, because the bottom line is the most important thing. That's what they exist for, really. Is
and not
money.
Only the human health, but environmental health. all of the packaging and all of those little cartridges that just get thrown away. And, you can get refills, but then you have a little refill syringe you have to throw away.
Yeah, and it all comes in a little tube.
Well, you could say
You
could say the same thing about these Keurig coffee.
Oh yeah, I would never use that.
Yeah,
that was a bad idea that somebody had, and sometimes people have bad ideas that seem really cool at first, and once you find out it's a bad idea, it's time to shift it into a new product and get rid of that product because it's not good. Mm-hmm. We have a caller. Caller, you are on the air. What's your name?
Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Welcome.
Hey, I was just thinking that Madeline was on the air yesterday for Trash to Treasure, Madeline Hope, and was pointing out to the listeners and to me that the stuff for after the coastal cleanup and finding these cartridges that you were just discussing, that they actually qualify as household hazardous waste, so they need to be disposed of in a specific way.
So like that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, but just to say that they do meet the qualifications for household hazardous waste, so they should not be just dumped in the garbage. They need to be disposed of properly.
Wow.
FYI.
Well, thank you.
Know what the proper way of disposing them is?
I think you'd have to sort of do like you do with paints and all of those things. You have to take them and drop them off.
You're talking about vaping cartridges?
Yeah. They qualify as household hazardous waste.
Wow. Well, that's good to know.
Don't shoot the messenger. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Amanda.
Well, if you're vaping, if this is something that you're doing, if you're vaping THC or CBD oil or stuff like that, give us a call and see. Let us fill us in on your experience. I know there must be people out there that are vaping, and we'd like to hear from you. It's what's the plus side? It is an application that can be positive stuff that people are getting in without all the bad stuff that comes in with tobacco. Like you said, the tars and the paper and all the rest. So, hey, if anybody wants to add their experiences, give us a call. 663-8492. That's area code 415 if you're in Ohio. So,
or 8317. And you're listening. Let's talk on KWMR 90.5 Point Reyes, 89.9 Bolinas, and 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley. We're talking about vaping today with Shelley Rugg, Stephen Hurwitz, and Maya Rose. And now we'd like to thank our underwriters.
KWMR is supported by our Calendar Club members and by Bear Valley Cottage in Alima. Information on this self-catering cottage available at bearvalleycottage.com. KWMR is also supported by the Point Reyes Farmers Market, Saturdays in downtown Point Reyes Station at Toby's Market, at Toby's Barn, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., offering 100% organic produce, baked goods, artisan cheese, as well as prepared foods, live music, and an interactive kids zone. More information at pointreyesfarmersmarket.org.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you to our supporters.
All right, so give us a call and get in on this conversation, 415-663-8492 or 8317.
Hey, if you want to tip our show, too, that's good. You just call in and say, hey, I want to tip.
That's right.
Let's talk.
Donate $20 to Feel Great. It's KWMR's 20 for 20 in September 30th. And say happy birthday to the radio station by donating $20. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and do it by tipping our show because we know you love us so much.
So we're talking about vaping, and we'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear from you in terms of how we're supposed to react to this. Prohibitions, is it a tempest in a teapot that politicians are climbing on board because they don't have anything that they want to do? This is a bipartisan.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get them. We got 500 sick people.
It is pretty stunning that they're so quick to say, stop buying, all vape products until we know what's going on. But yet we continue to have live shooter incidents and hundreds of people dying, and we're still not properly regulating firearms.
Sounds like they're using this as a distraction right now.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want people to die. Don't get me wrong. We don't want people to have trouble breathing. And everybody, I think we all need to be really careful consumers, and more so today than ever, because there are so many companies out there that aren't doing their homework, and they're not taking into account, bad outcomes, that the potential for things to go wrong and harm.
I'll be the devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
And it's a $3 billion industry, which means a lot of people are vaping. And you have 8 people die from it when there must be, you got 20,000 stores that sell this stuff. You got 8 people that died, and you have 50 people that have gotten sick. This is minuscule compared to the number of people that are actually using the product. Yes, they shouldn't be marketed to kids in flavors, etc. If you could just get that under control, it's really insignificant than the people who are suffering from this product. Yeah, the nicotine again is especially marketing nicotine to children, or young adults.
Well, and it's those big plumes of smoke are so appealing, and it's so fun in our age of grab your phone and take a picture, and the selfies, and it's fun. You sit around with your friends and take pictures of each other making huge, amazing clouds of smoke.
And then when one of your parents complains, you say, I'm not smoking, I'm vaping. It's not bad for you.
Right.
Well, I was reading that on some high schools they've taken the doors off of the stalls because everybody's going in there to vape.
What?
I know, I read that.
That's ridiculous.
I know, it sounds pretty bad. So that's what happens, though. There's an overreaction that happens, and maybe what's going on right now is an overreaction. I think it's just low-hanging fruit for politicians to get on board.
In the end, it's just another thing where these kids, these teenagers are suffering, and, us and big companies like everybody else is just kind of putting something on them and making it hard for them, and, like they're pieces on a chessboard.
When you get down to it, alcohol is the number one problem in America in terms of abuse of a drug, and alcohol consumption amongst students, high school students, etc., is huge. And so I'm comparing vaping, and I think that I don't like it, but if you put it in perspective of everything else, it's really not as serious as we're making it sound.
Yeah, and I think it's good that we see that, because what we're seeing in the news right now is like, oh my God, this vaping epidemic, teenagers dying. They're just trying to scare us and distract us, but there's so many other things that we could be focusing on that are just as bad.
If you believe that, if you believe that what we're saying, call us in. If you think
if you want to argue,
if you think I'm just crazy to say that, call in. I just love to hear from you.
415-663-8492 or 8317.
What do you think about vaping? Come on, it's the subject of the hour.
I can speak to benefits of vaping cannabis if we'd like. As somebody with chronic back pain and anxiety who lived with depression for many years, I feel like it's helped me be able to both get out in the world and function normally at times, and it's helped me to get up off the floor when my back is just not gonna let me. So there are some definite medical benefits to vaping and to vaping cannabis.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people do that. They sell it at the clubs, and a lot of people go and get it and can testify to how much it's helped them. So if you're one of those people, please call in,
So
back me up.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that vaping THC is not necessarily, we started out the program decrying the vaping epidemic, but now we're starting to find out some of the benefits.
Well, honestly, I think it's not vaping the technology that needs to be vilified here. It's the substance going into the vaporizers and the companies who are not testing.
Yeah.
But vaping, like as an act, as a technology, can be very useful.
Yeah.
It's just another way of taking medicine.
Yeah.
I think one of the big issues, though, is marketing tobacco products to students, to underage. These people who are under 21 years of age. Mm-hmm. So marketing that to people, unicorn milk or one they call mother's milk. I mean, come on.
No, yeah. Like how Joe Camel was used to market cigarettes for a while, and then they realized, using this cute cartoon for kids is maybe not the best idea.
The Marlboro Man, wow. I was a Marlboro smoker. I guess I identified with this guy with his tattoo on his hand, and he just got off his horse.
Right. Rope over his shoulder, ready to go rope some cattle.
That was me, yeah.
I can see that, Stephen.
Yeehaw.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, remember, you remember, because I remember that they used to advertise cigarettes heavily on TV and in magazines and billboards and
movies. Oh
everything.
My gosh, look at the old movies. Everybody's
and
smoking.
At some point, they said no more cigarette advertising on TV. I don't know if did they get rid of it out of magazines too?
I think so. I don't see tobacco ads, and they certainly smoking in movies is rare.
I'll have to say, I remember before they changed the smoking laws, there was this bar I liked to go to in my neighborhood, and people smoked there. And this was right on the cusp of them trying to change the laws. And this was like one of the bars in town where the smokers could still get away with it. But as a non-smoker, oh my gosh, it was miserable because it takes the air away. Like, it really is hard to breathe. And I guess if you're smoking, you don't notice that because you're in the midst of inhaling that stuff. So it feels like you're normal. But for non-smokers, it's really... And then getting home and your clothes just smell awful.
It is true that vaping's not as bad as that. It doesn't have that residue, and it doesn't really...
I have to...
That whole second and third-hand smoke thing.
I have to tell you that I know somebody that vapes quite a bit, and he does have that... There is a smell to it. There really is. Oh. You know that somebody's doing it. When I quit smoking, I had the same experience as you. All of a sudden, tobacco smoke, side stream smoke was horrible.
Yeah, I remember once I went to visit my grandparents, and they were both smokers since, the 30s. That was the thing. Everybody smoked and had a cocktail. Cocktail in one hand, a cigarette in the other. And I'd come home from her house, and I'd open up my suitcase, and there it was, that cigarette smell. And so that's another thing is the secondhand. There's the secondhand smoke, and I think a lot of us have heard of that. But there's also what's called third hand, and that's like what gets in the clothing and in the curtains and in the furniture, and that's actually supposed to be worse for you.
Really?
Ugh.
Yeah, but yeah, vaping.
I started smoking. We're talking about tobacco sort of as a side. I started smoking in utero, I think.
Oh, my.
I can't be sure. My mother is a heavy smoker. Man, if
Were you a smoker?
Yes, I smoked for maybe 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And when I was between, say, from 18 years old or 17 to maybe 22, I'm one of those people that did not have trouble giving it up.
Yeah.
But if side stream smoke makes you sick, I got side stream smoke.
Side stream, that's cute.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What's it, second hand? Excuse me.
It's second hand or third hand.
Boy, I got it.
Yeah?
Big time.
What happened?
Well, my mother was such a heavy smoker; it was everywhere.
Right.
This was the time when you would have a little container of cigarettes on the coffee table. So if anybody came over, there were
because everybody smoked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to sneak cigarettes when I was a kid. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd climb in my mother's car, and there they were, packages of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And me and my friends, we'd grab a smoke now and then.
So that being said, I'm curious if your mother were a vapor instead, or if she had the opportunity to switch over to vaping instead of having cigarettes lying around when you were a kid. Do you think that would have been different, better, worse?
I couldn't say. You'd have to ask her. And it's a little late for that.
Where is she? Call in.
Mom, give us a call from wherever you are. She lived to be 99, by the way, only about 6 months short of 100.
God. Wow.
So I have to say...
you never can tell. Everybody's body reacts to things in their own unique way, and that's really important to know, too. Mm-hmm. But, I'm really grateful. Both of my parents smoked cigarettes when I was young, but I got to watch them both quit.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And so that set a really great example.
My mother quit too, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is, it's social, Tobacco is very social.
Well, and there's ritual that can come into play.
So that may be what vaping's all about too. It's belonging. It's, when I quit tobacco, what happened was I asked myself, why did I smoke cigarettes? And there are alternative reasons other than addiction as to why people smoke, and I think there are probably alternative reasons as to why people vape. That's my for me. A cigarette was my friend. Okay, it was a friendship. When I realized that, then it was easier for me to quit because I understood why you're by yourself, you need something, you need someone to relate to. Well, as an alternative, there was that cigarette.
Mm-hmm. And then imagine that as a high school student, and you're at school all day, and maybe you feel ostracized, lonely, or just, it's hectic. High school is hard, but then you go in the bathroom, you take a puff of your vape, and it's just a little bit of a relief, something you can do for yourself, something secret, your little ritual, right?
Right.
And nicotine does have drug effects. It sharpens the mind temporarily. I mean, there are reasons people like nicotine. Anybody like nicotine out there?
Cigarette lovers.
You're listening to Let's Talk on KWMR 90.5 Point Reyes, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley. And it's Shelley Ruggs, Stephen Hurwitz, and Maya Rose talking about vaping. And we'd love for you to call 415-663-8492 or 8317.
I want to add one more thing about nicotine is that you live in California and people just don't, you walk down the street now, there are really very few people smoking, and they certainly aren't smoking on the street. But if you go to the Midwest or other parts of the country, you'll find
more smokers
and a lot of smokers in public.
Uh-huh.
And so we're in a rare environment here, I think, in California.
I'm, dear smokers out there, I'm so grateful that you go outside to smoke. I know it can be a hassle, I'm sure, and but I really am grateful. Thank you.
I would like to say one more thing about vaping, because I feel like I've had quite a few friends who have, like I said, weaned themselves off of cigarettes and onto vaping. And while it's still not a perfect thing, I think in California it's a little bit more regulated and safer. And, you can start at like a high level of nicotine and then lower down until you're at like nothing. So it is, I believe, an effective method to wean yourself off of smoking.
So I have a question for you. These people that you know who have reduced the levels of nicotine. Did they quit, or they just were happy to have?
Not completely. I do know one that mostly smokes just. I think it's vape liquid with like either no or like point, minuscule tiny amount of nicotine, and it's still nicotine. It's still there most of the time, but it's just better. I mean, like you said, cigarettes get into everything. They get in the curtains, the rug. They seep into your life, and they're disgusting. If that person has to have that addiction, which a lot of us do, everybody has their addictions. So it's not like we're faulting you for being addicted to this thing. Sugar, yes, right. Absolutely. It's not your fault for being addicted to these products. And if you're going to have an addiction to any kind of nicotine, I think it'd be better if it was to vaping than to cigarettes. And I think that's important to make that distinction. But
that sort of confirms what I was saying about alternative reasons why people smoke. Because if people are down to the very bottom level of nicotine and are still vaping, then, why?
It's because it's a habit. I mean, it's something people do, like, if they bite their nails, if they're anxious,
kind of the ritual
lonely. Everybody has their thing. And maybe that's a topic for another show. Addiction.
So it could be worse, in other words.
It could be a lot worse.
Those nail biting.
And I hate to play that game. It could be worse, though.
This is true.
Nail biting is terrible.
Were you a nail biter?
Oh, yeah. I'm not anymore, and I'm very proud, but it definitely was a very hard point in my life for a long time. And I did pick up smoking for a very short period. I smoked cigarettes, but not as a smoker. Just, I didn't hate them and picked them up every once in a while. And I did find that it helped with my biting and with my, picking at my fingers. Just
gave you
having
something else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you always hear something to do with your hands, especially in social situations. That's why.
Because where do you put them? They're just there.
These hands. There's a topic. We'll talk about what do you do with your hands.
If you're having a problem with your hands, I say write poetry.
Right. Oh, nice one, Stephen.
Knitting is good too. I enjoy
knitting.
That.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still a knitter? I think knitting's fascinating.
I haven't in a while, but I do have a lot of unfinished projects I should get back to.
Yeah. Knitting is good for a lot of things.
I'm surprised we're not getting some people calling in.
I know. It was just, I opened the paper yesterday, and there it was, front page, don't use vape products until further notice.
Well, I think it's good that we're getting that information out there for people who maybe read about it but don't feel comfortable voicing their opinions, aren't sure how they feel, education.
I feel like doing a little vaping right now. I mean, all this.
I got one in my purse.
Is that allowed in the studio, Stephen? We have a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name?
Hi, it's Lyons.
Hi, Lyons. Thanks for calling.
I will watch my language.
Thank you. Good job.
Stephen, don't do it. Don't take it. I'm one of the lucky people who never started smoking because I would not have been able to stop. I'm quite convinced. So count my blessings. But I'm calling with a word in favor of knitting. I heard you mention knitting. Knitting is wonderful. And there's a lovely group of people who meet Thursday afternoons at 4:30-ish at the Point Reyes Station Library, and they knit together.
Well, that would be today.
That's today.
Wow. So if you feel yourself needing something to do with your hands, needing a habit today, you know where to go.
Yeah, if you're thinking about knitting and don't know anything about it yet, you are most welcome.
It's interesting because my mother, being a heavy smoker, was also a heavy knitter. And she was very good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have very twitchy hands. I'm forever
same.
grateful I didn't start smoking.
Good for you.
But I recommend knitting.
All right.
Take care of yourselves, people.
Thank you, Lyons.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was cute.
Very cool.
Shelley, you're creative. Did you ever knit or sew?
Well, you didn't see me knit.
Oh, yes, I did. That's right. I did.
With the giant.
But you have to stand
needle.
on stilts the way you do it.
Yeah, on a ladder. I've used them before without the ladder, so it is possible. But yes, knitting. I am a very simple knitter. I make scarves. I can knit and purl, so I can make patterns, but nothing too sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a like I said, very simple.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a meditation.
And yarn can be just the yummiest thing.
It's very tactile.
The texture, the color.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a yarn shop?
I have, and I bought some yarn at the farmer's market. You can buy really nice yarn.
Oh.
And I gave it to someone who said she'd knit me a hat.
Uh-huh. You're still waiting?
No, she knitted me a hat, and I think it would fit like a 4-year-old.
Oh, no.
And I didn't have the heart to tell her that it was too small.
Aww.
No, she went out and did that. I just didn't want to tell her that.
Yeah, and definitely don't throw it in the wash.
Yeah.
Actually, then maybe the fibers will compress and you'll have like a little doll hat.
Or maybe I could block it and make it larger.
Ooh. Well, what do you got to lose? Give it a try.
Nothing. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Vaping, this is it. We're getting close to the end. This is your last chance to tell us about vaping.
663-8492-8317. Well, it's unfortunate because I think generally speaking, vaping is better for your lungs than smoking. And it's unfortunate that some manufacturers can't be trusted and we don't know who they are. And so it makes it, it's a real bummer for those who are making good products. Now everybody's going to be staying away and it's going to really hurt their business.
I can't. I'm not going to worry about
the vaping business. Yeah. But I think, like you were saying, Stephen, this idea of putting all this sweet flavors to appeal to children, it feels wrong. And I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Mercy.
I like the real deal. I would much rather smell what tobacco smells like or smell what cannabis smells like than have some added flavors.
What about if they switch to only selling vape flavors that are tobacco-y? Then people who like adults like sweet flavors too. So maybe there are some adults who are smoking those sweet flavors and now their only option is to smoke tobacco flavors, and maybe they've come a long way and don't want to go back to that. I mean, I guess it's an incentive to get off of it all the way, but it just...
as far as, reaching kids are always going to be curious. They see their aunts and their uncles and their moms and their dads using these things. Mm-hmm. They're going to want to try it, whether they can get it legally or not. They'll find a way.
I don't think the adult use is anywhere close to what's happening with... well, I shouldn't say that. $3 billion a year being spent on
if you ever go into one of the dispensaries, you'll see a lot of adults in line.
Yeah.
And they're not all kids or really young. They're
so you're talking
all
about
ages.
the THC vaping then?
Well, there's THC, there's cannabis, but all ages use this stuff.
I have another thing. A friend who I asked about this before coming on the show told me their opinion. They thought that if it was prohibited, then, like you said, teens would find a way to get it. But also, I guess there's a way to make it. So if vape juice is easily made, then maybe these kids will be making their own, and then maybe they'll be making them like even worse, and it'll be even more dangerous. So,
well, these are some of the issues around prohibition.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Well, be healthy, everyone.
Be well,
and be careful in your choices, and check out the companies you're buying from. Yeah. Don't assume that just because something is on a market shelf that it's safe.
It's important to check your sources.
Yeah.
I think in this community, I don't think that's a big issue. Do you? I mean, is vaping something you think is a huge, big issue in our community?
Just about this community, though.
Right. I don't think you can buy any vape products in Point Reyes Station that I know of. But that doesn't mean people don't use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I know they do.
Yeah. Well, it's the latest thing. You know, we all like gimmicks and gadgets, and we also like to think we're making healthy choices for ourselves. You know?
Yeah, I think the big issue right now is the flavored vaporizers for being marketed to high school kids. I think that's a huge. I think that's the big issue.
And just the chemicals in them, the vitamin E oil, whatever else is in there. Not to mention if it's, I mean, I guess with tobacco too, but if it's cannabis, like where was that cannabis grown? Is it organic or not?
Right.
Is it in the vicinity of other inorganic farms where pesticides might be like wafting over?
Right.
In the breeze, also
Know your grower.
A lot of oil is made with butane extraction, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
And gross.
Well, I think that's it for our show on vaping today, and thank you for listening, everyone. And we'll be back next week without Paul again, and who knows what we'll be talking about.
Well, we should figure that out pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.